Parts of Haiti are under a state of emergency after an escalation in violence. Gangs have taken control of most of the capital and they want Prime Minister Ariel Henry out. So what's behind this unrest and what will it take to restore long-lasting stability to the country? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Jonah Hull. Haiti's capital is at war. That's the warning from the country's Director of National Police. Port-au-Prince has been overrun by gangs. A state of emergency has been declared after gang members attacked 2 prisons, freeing several thousand prisoners. The security situation worsened after President Jovenel Moïse was assassinated 3 years ago. For months, protesters have been calling for Prime Minister Ariel Henry to step down. They're angry about delayed elections, the rising cost of living and insecurity. The United Nations says the violence forced 300,000 people to leave their homes this year. Well, the Foreign Minister has likened the situation in Haiti to a war zone. To help restore order, the UN has proposed sending a multinational force. So what's led to this crisis, and is international intervention the way to resolve it? We'll discuss all of that with our guests in a few minutes, but first this from Kulsum Sharif.
A country in chaos. Heavily armed gangs tried to seize control of Haiti's main airport on Monday, exchanging fire with police and soldiers. The attack is the latest in an explosion of violence that's included the escape of several thousand inmates from the country's 2 biggest prisons, leaving some dead. Curfew and emergency measures are in place, but the violence is escalating. It's forcing businesses and schools to close and hundreds of people to flee for safety.
Since the day I left my house, I've lived like an animal because in the space we sleep, even animals don't sleep there. We're crammed together.
Gangs led by Jimmy Cherigier, a former police officer known as Barbecue, are trying to overthrow the government. Prime Minister Ariel Henry traveled overseas trying to get support for a UN-backed security force. But the unrest worsened in his absence.
The situation is getting worse. The national police can do nothing against armed gangs. Only a military force can help us in this situation.
In 2019, an increase in fuel prices led to protests and escalated into a long drawn-out crisis involving job losses, rises in the cost of living and food shortages. More than half of the country's 11 million citizens living under poverty line were affected. 2 years later, the assassination of President Jovenel Moïse led to lawlessness that's continued to worsen. Nearly 5,000 people have been killed in the violence in 1 year, and armed groups now control about 80% of the capital, according to the United Nations. And it's calling for funding to tackle the situation and for elections to be held in Haiti.
The Secretary General reiterates the need for urgent action, particularly in providing financial support for the multinational security support mission to address the pressing security requirements of the Haitian people and prevent the country from plunging further into chaos.
The unrest in Haiti is worrying neighboring states. The Dominican Republic has refused to open refugee camps for people fleeing Haiti. The U.S. has asked American citizens to leave quickly. But for those left in the country, there's no escape from the reality of what the UN describes as catastrophic levels of hunger and violence that are only getting worse. Kulsum Sharif, Al Jazeera, for Inside Story.
Well, before we go to our panel of experts, let's hear from Ambassador of the Republic of Haiti to the State of Qatar, Francois Guillaume, who joins us from Doha. Very good to have you with us, Ambassador. Your country, sir, is in the grip of anarchy, of gang-led rule, one of its worst crises, certainly in the modern era. Did you ever imagine things could get this bad?
Well, thank you, Mr. Hall, first of all, for this invitation to Al Jazeera English. And I would also like to first and foremost present my deepest condolences to the families that have fallen prey to this wave of insecurity in Haiti, particularly the valiant and courageous police officers that go out there every day to risk their lives to try to preserve a safe environment for us all. In the scope of all of this, we tend to forget that we have some police officers that are going out there every day risking their lives, and their valiant efforts has to be recognized.
Does it shock you what's happening?
It saddens me to say that what is happening right now is not all too shocking. The reason being is for the better part of the last 2 years, the government and the National Police Force have been alerting the international community of the risks at bay. We unfortunately have a police force that has not had the capacity to face this current wave of gang warfare. Doesn't mean it doesn't have the tactical capacity. In terms of numbers, we are outnumbered and we are outgunned. Unfortunately, what's happening today is not all that surprising, especially when you have gangs that are coordinating their efforts to thin out the capacity of the police force that's already thin and take advantage of some weak points. It is an outcry. It is sad. However, there is a solution. The National Police Force has a solution to be able to come to a resolution of this insecurity. And the first thing has been for the past 2 years, in terms of what we've been advocating for, the government and the police force, the establishment of a collaboration between the National Police Force and a multinational support to that force.
So you believe that an international security force is the answer, or part of the answer?
It is definitely part of the answer, and it's only part of the answer. There are many other facets of this security problem. The fact that we have young men and women that are falling prey to gang activities is because they have been left to no other alternatives than that route. So concurrently with security measures, Haiti has to be seen as an area where it has to be invested into its citizens. We need to invest more in Haiti. It may be counterintuitive to speak about investment, but Haiti is one of those countries, one of those lands that has the most propensity to lift itself out of this economic doldrums that we find ourselves into.
Ambassador, Prime Minister Ariel Henry is out of the country. He went to Kenya to try and resolve the block in getting these security forces into Haiti. Where is the Prime Minister at this moment, and when is he planning to make his return?
This information has not been disclosed yet in terms of where he is. He definitely left Kenya. I believe if he was up to the Prime Minister, he would have been in Haiti days ago. The current situation in Haiti probably has presented logistical issues for him not being able to be there. However, I do not have the latest information into his whereabouts, but that does not conclude the fact that he believes that his role and his place should be in Port-au-Prince right now.
Ambassador Francois Guillaume, many thanks for your time and for joining us. Well, let's bring in our panel of experts now. From Bordeaux in France, Erwan de Cherisy is with the defence intelligence company Janes. He was with the UN peacekeeping force in Haiti in 2014. In New York, Vander Felberg-Brown is director of the Initiative on Non-State Armed Actors for the Brookings Institution. And finally, we have Ralph Emmanuel Francois, Haitian social entrepreneur and activist. We're not revealing his location for security reasons. Welcome to all of you. Ralph, let me ask you first of all, what is it like for ordinary Haitians now living in the grip of gang-led anarchy, of economic catastrophe, joblessness, hunger, sexual exploitation, murder, atrocities committed on the streets?
This is a very sad situation for our country now, and it is hard to imagine. And the level, the emotions that we're having now, fear, sadness, pessimistic, man, it's really hard to imagine. It's uncertainties. You're not able to project your life and to say that, okay, in 24 hours I will be in this location, in 24 hours I'll be there. And every day that you have a family member coming back from the streets, it's like a party. It's really difficult to project life in such a chaos.
People living in a constant
the
state
government-
of insecurity and uncertainty. Very unsettling.
yeah, it is. Yeah, it is very hard, and I believe some communities are held hostage, and I don't know. And you've seen what happened in terms of response from the government. They've taken curfew measures and everything, but they have not been able, to communicate appropriately. And
Right.
in times of crisis, the least that we should expect from our political leaders is to hide, from the window, is not taking responsibility. At least we've been waiting for communication, like face to face, where our prime minister should be, in place in front of TV and telling people what their plans are, for the next 24 hours, for the next 72 hours, and how they're going to deal with the situation.
Okay. Well, Van der Velberg-Brown, a picture of political failure, social dysfunction, and of course rule by gangs there, with your speciality in non-state actors, in other words, armed groups like gangs, and with a specific focus, I know, on Haitian gangs. Tell us, how did they become so powerful, essentially defeating the mechanisms of state?
Well, for decades, Haiti has had a rule that's very exclusionary, very centered on bringing economic and political benefits to a very narrow class of people, while the vast majority of the population has been essentially left to fend for itself. And for decades, also, businessmen and politicians in Haiti, often at the highest level, have been using gangs for their political and economic purposes to intimidate and coerce their rivals. Over time, however, the gangs have slipped the leash and they have become far more powerful, far more organized, and far more ambitious. Partially, this stems from their access to heavier weapons, but partially this is the socialization, the learning they had through decades of interacting with the political system that has been using them for their purposes. And this is now taking place in a context where Haiti has not had a legitimate government for 2 years. President Moïse was assassinated, and since then, Prime Minister Ariel Henry has assumed the office of the Prime Minister. He was never elected. There was all along significant political opposition to his rule. He promised that by February 2024, he would hold elections. That was not done for many reasons, including abysmal security situation. And so we're in the context of a government that is weak, where police forces are politicized and collapsed, where gangs have long used their power to interact and coerce the political system and now are more and more ambitious, and where conditions for ordinary Haitians are absolutely hellish.
So essentially collusion with politics and politicians produced a monster, and the monster escaped the cage. Erwan de Cherisi.
Exactly.
You have experience of African forces, their makeup and expertise. You also have experience on the ground in Haiti with MINUSTAH, the UN peacekeeping force in 2014. I want to ask you, is it appropriate to be drawing a security force from African countries to be brought to Haiti? Shouldn't it be people closer to hand with a better knowledge of the situation in the country, perhaps LATAM countries or the Caribbean or the United States even?
So the African countries have been involved in MINUSTAH. They provided some police contingents. They speak French, and there is some cultural connection with the Haitian people. So involvement of African forces would likely have some positive elements. The problem, as you mentioned, is that they do not have experience on the ground. The type of operations they would be having to conduct in Port-au-Prince would mostly be urban operations. for which, for example, the Kenya police has no major experience. Latin American countries were significantly involved in MINUSTA. They have a lot of experience in Haiti. They know the lay of the land. They would definitely be a better option, probably on account of their experience. The problem is that not many of them are eager to join. To date, among the countries that have committed themselves to the possibility of joining the force are a number of Caribbean countries, including Jamaica, Guyana, Bahamas, Belize. Actually, Jamaica has a lot of experience in urban operations in the kind of setting that that could be Port-au-Prince, fighting gangs in Kingston, and would probably be very well suited to operations in Haiti. The problem is they can't commit large number of personnel.
Okay. Ralph, with all of that in mind, I mean, do you think your country would welcome an international security force now, particularly given the legacy of MINUSTA that ended in 2017? There was sexual exploitation allegations made against those UN peacekeepers, a cholera epidemic that killed 10,000 people that came out of their camps.
Obviously, we need the use of force. We need the use of force. But I strongly believe, without a political strategy, the use of force will not be effective. And it showed that in the past. For example, in 2004, the epicenter of the complex situation in terms of gang violence was Cité Soleil. Cité Soleil is a slum on the outskirts of Port-au-Prince of 300,000 people at this time. And we had around 10,000 soldiers there. And actually, we are in 2024, 20 years later, and we don't have only one epicenter of the violence for now. We have more epicenters. So, and also the situation is much more complex for many reasons. One of the reasons is in 2004, the gangs were less autonomous. Now they have mostly a total control of our maritime, circumference in the country, maritime. So it is much more complex. And they are localized in some parts of Port-au-Prince, which means that, of course, there will be boots on the ground, but we need a political strategies because we should anticipate civil casualties.
Sure.
And for civil casualties, we should anticipate also rapid humanitarian response.
Ralph, let me bring Vanda in on that. I mean, is there a risk that sending 5,000 troops from Africa into Haiti under these circumstances is at best a very, very temporary solution without a wider plan?
Well, absolutely. It is a temporary solution, and I think that everyone understands that the MSS is meant to provide security environment to both enable the political process to move forward, certainly at least toward elections, so that there is some legitimate elected body in Haiti, but also to enable the reconstruction of the Haitian police force, which nominally is somewhere around 9,000 men. In practice, if 3,000 are operational at any day, that's probably a high number. Nonetheless, there are many challenges for the MSS, some of which have to do with the number of personnel, as was already mentioned. It's not inevitable that we actually have 5,000 forces. What kind of rules of engagement they will have? Will they take an offensive fight toward the gangs? Will they be in a static position, simply perhaps protecting the main road between the airport and the port terminal to a central part of Port-au-Prince? Very many questions, a massive amount of uncertainty in what is no doubt going to be a very complex mission lasting for a very long time, or at minimum, it will last a very long time to subdue the gangs to a level of security that doesn't simply explode the moment the troops leave.
And not a benign mission. I mean, we're talking about a violent mission, essentially. Erwan, I want to bring you in on this. I mean, in Africa, you'll be perfectly aware, abundantly so, I'm sure, of the activities of groups like Wagner. And I wonder whether, in the absence of the willingness or ability of countries to actually properly police the situation in Haiti, whether you can see or foresee the possibility that the Russians get involved here on a different basis, on a different level?
I don't see the Russians as deploying Wagner or any kind of direct presence in Haiti. It would be quite complex, and it would not necessarily advance their aims significantly. However, using internet media campaign, disinformation campaigns, as they've done so aptly in Africa over the past couple of years, they could definitely sow further dissension, creating an even more significant humanitarian crisis on the doorstep of the United States, and distracting the attention of the United States in terms of its security commitments and potentially military commitments away from Europe, away from China, away from Gaza.
Wanda, I want to ask you, you talk about a political framework and so on. I mean, if we assume that the gangs are so infiltrated into Haitian society that there is such a degree of collusion between the gangs and politics, do we have to assume that the political future of Haiti, at least the foreseeable one, will have to, on some basis, include those gangs? Possibly that political leadership will come from the gangs. And I wonder, for instance, who is Jimmy Barbecue Cherizier? Is he a man who can be negotiated with? Is he a man who could rise to political leadership?
So there are enormous controversies in Haiti about the questions you're asking. Very large number of people have suffered terribly, and they hate the idea of any kind of negotiations with the gangs and with their leaders. Of course, Haiti has a decades-long tradition of such negotiations taking place that has simply resulted in empowering the gangs. So one can negotiate in ways that reduce the damage or augment the damage. I mean, certainly the nature of the negotiations will very much depend on how powerful the MSS is and what kind of security effects it manages to generate on the ground. If the international force is very weak, accomplishes perhaps only holding some of the key infrastructures, and the gangs continue to rule the rest of Port-au-Prince, that any kind of negotiations would be weak, and the gangs would well ask for political power. Barbecue, Jimmy Cherizier, is a former police officer. He certainly has been very politically active. He's perhaps the most openly politically active of the gang leaders. Other gang leaders serve politicians, defect from their political alliances. Cherizier is himself personally politically ambitious, and the latest several days of violence, we have had Cherizier saying that he's again trying to bring down the government of Prime Minister Henry.
Ralph was shaking his head there, and I'll come to you. Okay, go on, Ralph.
I'd like to put a word there.
Yeah, go on.
Barbecue is a criminal. He's a criminal. I know he's very intelligent, and he's been pushing for communication and to present himself to have like a poster as a leader. But he's a criminal, and the biggest mistake that we should avoid is to validate the gang members as negotiation actors. They are criminals. And that's the reason I'm saying that, of course, we need the use of force, but without political strategy, a clear, precise, intelligent political strategy that addresses first, provide the essentials of peace. Second, a humanitarian plan to address around 5 million people for food and security. And last, a clear path to election, credible election.
Okay.
So the political frame is actually very important. It's utmost at this moment. No negotiation with the members. No negotiation with the members.
I'm going to bounce back to you in a second. I'm going to bounce back to you in a second for a final thought, Ralph, on this. But I just want to bring Wanda in. What about Prime Minister Ariel Henry? He's about to make a reappearance, we think, in Haiti any day now. How will he be received? He will be at presumably great risk. And does he have anything politically, do you think, to offer, given that he's essentially discredited and mistrusted?
So far, Prime Minister Henry has not been willing to step down. A lot of the political efforts in Haiti have centered on either negotiations with him, such as through the opposition groups around what used to be the Montana Group, a coalition of civil society and various political parties, other political parties. He still remains a very important actor, even in simply stepping down. Of course, if he were just to step down right now, there is a significant challenge of who will emerge as the leader without elections, which cannot be held under the current circumstances. So until he left for Kenya, he continued saying he would stay in office and elections would be held in about a year's time. Yet it's, as Ralph was saying earlier, I mean, there is a sense of increasing by the day, by the hour, as a result of the latest violence, that even his own authority has radically collapsed.
Seeped away. Ralph, I want to bring you in for a final thought here and bring us back down to a community level in Haiti, the people of Haiti. You spoke about the way they live in such fearful and uncertain conditions. Brutality also, though, creeping into society with the rule of the gangs and in the way that people relate to one another within communities and within society. How on earth will your country and its communities and its people survive and recover from all of this?
They will, and we will. We are very optimistic. And if you look at our history, we've had so many hurdles and so many times. Of course, we have many people that have lost the family members. These is a complex situations. But I strongly believe that we could get back. Listen, Haiti is a youthful country. Almost half of the population is under 18 years old. Mm-hmm. So whenever you have youngsters, you have hope. And I understand also there's a generational conflict. And I understand that some communities are held hostage, but we must come back and we should come back. But I would like to underline, without a political strategy, the use of force will be very ineffective. And I would ask the government, I would ask Prime Minister Ariel Henry, please make it easy for us. Mm-hmm. If you cannot take your responsibility, it shows that you've been here for almost 3 years. You have the first argument, nothing delivered. Second argument, nothing delivered. Please step back. Okay. Let's come together. Okay. Let's come together and present your resignation and participate in a political process that should help the country. Okay. An
important appeal there. Many thanks to you, Ralph. And thanks to all of our guests. Initially, Ambassador Francois Guillaume, of course, Owen de Cherisy, Van der Veldt-Brown and Ralph Emmanuel Francois. And thank you, too, for watching. You can see the programme anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. And you can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Jonah Hull, and the whole team here, it's goodbye for now.